The cosmic manifestation And this chapter is answers by citing the Lord's version. So like we were looking at text number 4. Atma Tattva Visuddhi Artam Yat Aham Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vrata Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vritadritaha Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vritadritaha Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vritadritaha Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vritadritaha
Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yadaha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyalika Vritadritaha Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam
Avyalika Vritadritaha.
Atma Tattva, the science of God, that of the living entity. Vishuddhi, purification. Artam, go. Yat, that which. Aha, said. Bhagavan, personality of God. Ritam, in reality. Brahmane, unto Lord Brahma. Rupam, eternal form. Yataka, without any deceptive motive. Vrata, vow. Adhava, worshipped. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O King, the personality of Godhead being very much pleased with Lord Brahma because of his non-deceptive penance in Bhakti Yoga, presented his eternal and transcendental form before Brahma, and that is the objective goal for purifying the conditioned soul. Purport. Atma Tattva is a science of both God and the living entity. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entity are known as Atma. The Supreme Lord is called Paramatma, and the living entity is called the Atma, the Brahma or the Jiva. Both the Paramatma and the Jivatma, being transcendental to the material energy, are called Atma. So Sukadeva Goswami explains this verse with the aim of purifying the truth of both the Paramatma and the Jivatma. Generally, people have many wrong misconceptions about both of them. The wrong conception of the Jivatma is to identify the material body with the pure soul, and the wrong conception of the Paramatma is to think him on an equal level with the living entity. Both misconceptions can be removed by one stroke of Bhakti Yoga. Just as in the sunlight, both the sun and the world and everything within the sunlight are properly seen. In the darkness, one cannot see the sun, nor himself, nor the world. But in the sunlight, one can see the sun, himself, and the world around him. Srila Sukadeva Goswami therefore says that for purification of both wrong conceptions, the Lord presented his eternal form before Brahmaji. Being fully satisfied by Brahma's non-deceptive vow of discharging Bhakti Yoga, except for Bhakti Yoga, any method for realization of Atma Tattva or the science of Atma will prove deceptive in the long run. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that only by Bhakti Yoga can one know him perfectly, and then one can enter into the science of God. Brahmaji undertook great penance in performance Bhakti Yoga, and thus he was able to see the transcendental form of the Lord. His transcendental form is 100% spiritual, and one can see him only by spiritualized vision after proper discharge of tapasya or penance. In pure Bhakti Yoga, the form of the Lord manifested before Brahma is not one of the forms with which we have experience in the material world. Brahmaji did not perform such severe types of penances just to see the form of material production. Therefore, the question by Maharaj Parikshit about the form of the Lord is answered. The form of the Lord is Satchidananda, or eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But the material form of the living entity, of the living being, is neither eternal, nor full of knowledge, nor full of bliss. That is the distinction between the form of the Lord and that of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, however, can regain its form of eternal knowledge and bliss simply by seeing the Lord by means of Bhakti Yoga. In summary, the summary is that due to ignorance, the conditioned soul is encaged in the temporary varieties of material forms. But the Supreme Lord has no such temporary form like the conditioned soul. He is always possessed of an eternal form of knowledge and bliss, and that is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. One can understand this difference by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Brahma was then told by the Lord the gist of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in 4 original verses. Thus, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not a creation of the mental speculators. The sound of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is transcendental, and the resonance of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is as good as that of the Vedas. Thus, the topic of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the science of both the Lord and the living entity. Regular reading or hearing of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is also performance of Bhakti Yoga, and one can attain the highest perfection simply by association of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Both Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit attained perfection through the medium of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Om Manghyanatminandasya Ghananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudhapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shrat Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sabetam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shta Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namusate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhu Bhyayivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Puttale Srimate Vaisheshika Dāsa Adhikari Namane Nama Praharshaya Silaya Prabhupada Anusarine Anititare Tasmai Shastra Bhajana Chodane Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Puttale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyamadi Paschatade Shatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Hayadegim Yakripatamaham Brahman Shri Gurum Dinatharanam Atmatatma Vishuddhyartham Yaraham Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane Darshayan Rupam Avyaklika Vratadritaha. O king, the personality of Godhead, being very much pleased with Lord Brahma, because of his non-deceptive penance in Bhakti Yoga, presented his eternal and transcendental form before Brahma. And that is the objective goal for purifying the conditioned soul. So we're entering here into a very, very important part of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, where Krishna is going to speak to Lord Brahma the four most important verses, arguably, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It was in Chatur Shloki. In this particular verse, Sukadeva Goswami is continuing to speak to Maharaj Parikshit. And this questions and answers we see throughout the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In the first canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is described. Munaya sadhu prishtoham bhavibhir loka mangalam. That these questions are actually yatkita Krishna samprasno deinatma suprasidati. That inquiring about Krishna and those things related to Krishna are for the actual welfare of the whole world. Bhavibhir loka mangalam. So this is the whole universe becomes auspicious by asking such questions. So here, Parikshit Maharaj continues to question Sukadeva Goswami. And now in this particular verse, Sukadeva Goswami is explaining how the Lord was pleased with Lord Brahma by his non-deceptive penance in Bhakti Yoga, and therefore he revealed further knowledge to him. So Prabhupada is starting off this purport by, in the first paragraph, giving an understanding of the difference between what is the Paramatma and the Jivatma, which means what is the difference between the living entity, or the minute living entity, which is us, and the supreme living entity, which is Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita actually is understood to be the preliminary study. And the Bhagavad Gita deals with 5 subject matters, which are Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. So these are the 5 subject matters that are dealt with in the Bhagavad Gita. So particularly here we're dealing with Ishvara and Jiva. So we want to try to understand what is the difference between the minute living entities and the supreme living entity. So as Prabhupada is correctly pointing out, generally people have many wrong misconceptions of both of them. So the New Age idea that we are all God, we are all one, this is something that's very much becoming very prominent today. And in India also, this Mayavad philosophy, unfortunately, is permeating the whole continent. And I had the experience of going on book distribution in India, going door to door, and they have, this worship of Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma being on the same platform. It's very prominent in practically every Hindu home you go to. So it's this Mayavad conception is very much prominent in today's society. And then this impersonalism, it's not that it's only there in India, it's very much here also in the West. That's why Srila Prabhupada is known as, that's what we glorify. Namaste Saraswate Deve Ghoravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatade Shatarine. He came to these Western countries to remove this voidism and impersonalism that is permeated society. And even when we come to devotional service, we're very much contaminated with these contaminations. And being contaminated in this way, we don't properly understand how to worship Krishna and his devotees. So in the Bhagavad Gita, to understand Ishvara and Jiva, Krishna gives us a very nice verse. He says, Maimai Vamso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So he very clearly says here that Maimai Vamso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So these living beings, that's all of us, we're eternally parts and parcels of Krishna. So here he's very clearly making the distinction that there's himself and then there's others. Not that everything is all one. So that is a distinction there. And when we hear the Bhagavad Gita specifically, we get a clear understanding of who is Krishna. For example, in the Chaturshloki of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states, Aham sarvasva prabhavo matar sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuda bhava samanvita. So he says that from me come all spiritual and material energies. So when we start to then examine this and just look at it with a little intelligence, from Krishna emanates everything we're looking at. And then we try to examine what emanates from us. Some bad smell, some, what are we in control of actually? Not many things. See, Krishna is the supreme though. This morning, for example, there was no hot water, and we're very scared to take a cold shower. Oh, cold shower. What are we in control in? We're not even in control of our own bodily functions. We're constantly being hampered by the threefold miseries, the three kleshas, by miseries caused by our own body and mind, miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by nature itself. What are we in control in? We can't even control our own bowel movements. When nature calls, we have to go also. So this is the point, is that when we're reading Bhagavad Gita, and actually if we take this knowledge, we'll understand that we're minute living entities, and we're fully dependent on Krishna, who is the supreme living entity. So what is actual knowledge? Actual knowledge is to understand that Krishna is everything. And in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, it states, Bhāvunam jamanamante jnanam mamam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudulabha. So Vasudeva sarvam iti. So Vasudeva is everything. This is what we're meant to understand, that Krishna is everything. And it says, Bhāvunam jamanamante jnanam mamam prapadyate. So after many, many years, after many millions of lifetimes, who knows how many lifetimes we've been in this material world, again and again, going through this cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who's actually intelligent comes to this point to understand that Krishna is everything. And once we understand that Krishna is everything, what are we meant to do with that? We're meant to render service unto Krishna. That's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Actually, it's very interesting. Prabhupada points out in the purport, the Lord presented his eternal form before Brahmaji, being fully satisfied by Brahma's non-deceptive vow. So this is a very interesting point, is non-deceptive. So devotional service is meant to be performed in that way. It's stated, Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti yadoksaje ahituki yapatiyata yayatma suprasidati. So what does it mean? That the topmost dharma, Savai pumsa paro dharmo, for all the humanity, is to perform devotional service unto Krishna. Ahituki yapatiyata, which means unmotivated and uninterrupted. So this is the actual qualification, is we have to become unmotivated in our devotional service, simply serving to serve Krishna. And we hear the example of the gopis, the topmost prayer, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, my dear Lord Krishna, whether you push me, whether you embrace me, whether you throw me away, I don't care. You are my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. And in the 2nd verse of the Bhagavatam, we also hear the qualification of those that are able to receive the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Dharma projito kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So those devotees who are nirmatsaranam, fully pure in heart, non-envious. And we hear about the 6 Goswamis as well. Srinivasacharya says, Dhira dhira janapriyo priyakaro nirmatsaro pujito. So this is the qualification. Actually, Srinivasacharya is glorifying the 6 Goswamis. Mande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopāla-campu. And he's saying that because they're not envious, because they have no envy in their heart, then they're worshipable, pujito, by everyone, by the ruffians and by the sobers also, the Dhira and the Adiras. So this is such a nice thing that Prabhupada is pointing out here. that by Brahma's non-deceptive vow of discharging bhakti yoga, the Lord became very pleased with him and revealed himself before Lord Brahma. So, yeah, it's mentioned there about the 6 Goswamis and performing devotional service in this mood. And then we see also those that have this non-envious quality, they just become very attractive. And we see in the person of Srila Prabhupada, many times if you hear the Srila Prabhupada memories, you see how Prabhupada might have gone into an airport and the devotees were doing kirtan there. And there might have been some envious people that were trying to like calm down the kirtan and calm down the devotees, saying, you're making a noise, you're making a ruckus. But as soon as Prabhupada walked in, they were just like, just blown away. Who is this person? And all the devotees bowed down, and then the envious people would bow down also. Because and it's meant like that. Nirmatsaranam satam, nirmatsaro pujito. So they become worshipable. And we see just regular people would just see Prabhupada and just want to serve him, not knowing why. Just because Prabhupada is a pure devotee, he's a pure representative of Krishna. He has no other desire in his heart other than to benefit the conditioned souls. And this is very attractive. So naturally, the souls will be attracted to this, because actually he's being used as Krishna's instrument, and Krishna's love is emanating through him. And because Krishna's love is going through him, this is the most attractive thing. Yenatma suprasidati, yayatma suprasidati. This bhakti can actually satisfy the self. So this is what we're all looking for. We're looking for pure love. And that can only be found in devotional service. So yeah, it's amazing how, even we hear the story of the stewardess, right, on the airplane, when there was practically nothing to eat, but she came up to Prabhupada and asked him, can I get you some milk? Can I get you some, without even knowing, can I get you some fruits? Can I get you some milk? It was just her capacity to engage in service was activated just by coming in contact with the pure devotee of Krishna. So this mood of performing devotional service unmotivatedly and uninterrupted. In the next verse, after Savai Bhusha Paro Dharmo is described, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prajojitaha Janaya Yasuvaigragyam Jnanam Cha Ya Ahitukam, which states that actually when we engage in devotional service, causes knowledge and detachment automatically awaken in one as well. So this causes knowledge and detachment will be properly understanding our position and properly understanding Krishna's position and what we're meant to do with what we have. So in this material world, we're engaging in this material world with our material senses. And Prabhupada here continues in the purport. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, only by Bhakti Yoga can one know Him perfectly. The Lord says that only by Bhakti Yoga one can know Him perfectly and then enter into the science of God. So there's a couple of points when engaging in Bhakti Yoga. So it's like, how do we understand this? How do we engage in devotional service? Okay, so this devotional service, how do you do it? You do it with the same senses that you have right now. The same body that you have, you're utilizing the service of the Lord. And that will lead to our liberation. And that will lead to us being free from the misconception that we're these material bodies. And that's very nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami and the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Sarvapadi Vinyamuktam Tatpadat Mainadhyamalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So he says that by engaging these very same senses in the service of the master of the senses, we become free from all upadis. Sarva upadi vivinya muktam. So we become free of this understanding, I am this man, I am this woman, I am this great person in this world, whatever misconceptions we may have. Because these are just obstacles, ultimately. In the ultimate sense, they're obstacles to uncovering our eternal identity, which is Jivera Surupoi Krishneda Nitya Das, or eternal servants of Krishna. So as long as we continue to entertain these upadis, then we will not understand Krishna. And another point is that our senses have to become spiritualized. Atashi Krishna namani nabhavikrayamindriyai seva mukti hi jivado swayam eva spurayada. And the translation to this verse, I'll give the exact translation because it's a very nice translation. Here, this is again quoted by Rupa Goswami. It's originally from the Padma Purana, and it's quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, in Madhya Lila. So it says, because Krishna's form, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all on the absolute platform, material senses cannot therefore appreciate them. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. Seva mukhi jivado. So the service starts with the tongue. We taste nice Krishna prasad. You know, we have our Bipin Prabhu cooking nice prasad every day. Very tasty, very tasty. He says about everything. Taste is so nice. So this is Krishna actually. And if we think in that way when we're taking the prasadam, if we actually taking prasadam is a meditation. You know, it's not different than Krishna himself. And so when we in the morning when we go to honor the prasadam, it's very nice. I see Nikunja Bihari Prabhu and Bhakta Dylan, they offer obeisances before they take prasadam. And I think it's a very nice practice actually, because this is Krishna himself manifesting in the form of his prasadam. And if when we're taking that prasadam, we're very concentrated, and we think, oh, how we take each preparation and we taste it, and then we can think how nice this was made for Krishna. We can be thinking how Krishna tasted this prasadam. And in this way purify our senses and come closer to Krishna. Because ultimately that is what the practice, that's why we're undergoing all these things. Coming to Mangalarti, you know, actually performing the basic program Srila Prabhupada gave us is engaging all of our senses in devotional service. And besides that, my Guru Maharaj says when we show up to the programs, it builds Krishna's faith in us. So imagine in the morning, just imagine, when the curtains open up, and there's Radha Govinda. Krishna is there, Radharani is there, Lord Chaitanya is there. The curtains open up and they're looking out, and they're seeing, oh, who are my devotees? Who has come to see me? And we can meditate in this way, like traditionally in monarchies, and even if you go to South India, you still see this tradition. It's more prominent still in the culture. I was visiting Sri Rangam, and you would see when they would wake up the Lord, very nice procession. There will be an elephant that comes in, and they'll be playing all types of instruments. So it's like this. It's like you're greeting the king. So it's like we're greeting Krishna. We're waking him up. That's how the king would be awakened. He would be woken up by singing and by a jester singing his glories, and all the subjects of the king would be there to greet him. So similarly, this is our meditation. In the morning, we come to greet Radha Govinda, and they look out at us and they put their merciful glance upon us. Drishta Vichar was the philosophy that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur taught us. The seer and the seen. We are actually the seen, and Krishna is the seer. So we're coming before Krishna so he can place his merciful glance upon us. And he's looking at us. And we're just as humble servants presenting ourselves before him. Krishna, here I am. I'm here to do service unto you in whichever way you like. And then how do we get that service to Krishna? We get it through the spiritual master. And by pleasing the spiritual master, we please Krishna. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasadam bhagati kutobi. By pleasing the spiritual master, we please Krishna. So Prabhupada continues here. Very interesting. He mentions how Lord Brahma underwent the proper discharge of tapasya, or penance, in pure bhakti yoga. So this tapasya, it's very interesting. What is the tapasya we can perform today? Can we sit in the forest surrounded by fire? Can we sit in a frozen lake up to our neck with water? You know, we can't even stay in a cold shower for 2 seconds. So we can't perform these heavy austerities that were prescribed in the past, the yogis. Even Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita tells Krishna, Krishna, you're telling me this system of yoga, but this is not possible to do. And Arjuna was such an advanced person. So imagine nowadays, what can we do? But with the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, we've been given the Sankirtan movement. And that is why it's called the Sankirtan Yajna. The Sankirtan Yajna. Krishnam Bharanam Tusha Krishnam Sangopam Gashtra Parsayam Yagnai Sankirtane Prayayanti Hi Sumedasaha. So he who has Sumedasaha, he who has good intelligence, will worship Lord Chaitanya. Will worship Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. Was Krishna Tusha Krishna, which means he's Krishna but not Krishna. He's Krishna but Krishna in a different form. He's not black, he's golden. So this is the most worshipful Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's brought this Sankirtan movement for all the fallen conditioned souls. So that includes myself, and I mean, I don't know about all of you, you probably are all more elevated souls than myself, but I know for me, the only hope I have is to engage in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Otherwise, you just get pulled in this Kali Yuga. This Kali Yuga is so vicious. Kalim Sattva Haram Pumsam. That this ocean of Kali takes away all the good qualities of the human being. Kali Sattva Haram. Sattva Haram. Sattva means all good. Haram takes away Pumsam of all people. So anybody who's not engaged in the movement of the Sankirtan movement, what hope do they have to develop good qualities? And even if they have so good qualities, if they don't have this quality that they surrender to Krishna, then it's actually useless. Shrama eva hi kevalam. Useless labor, useless endeavors. Shrama. But when we take shelter of the ashrama, then we're doing useful labor. Ashrama means useful labor. So we engage in this Sankirtan movement and do something useful. And then here, Prabhupada continues to say about the form of the Lord. He says the form of the Lord is Satchidananda. And this revelation of the Lord came to Brahma. And through this revelation actually was with the Brahma Samhita was manifested. And Prabhupada explains that Brahma Samhita is vijnana, is realized knowledge. Because Lord Brahma himself is personally seeing Krishna. So he says in the first verse, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Ishvara Parama Krishna. Ishvara, Krishna is the supreme controller. Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a form that's eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Anadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. And he is the cause of all causes, but he himself is causeless. So this is what Brahma is revealing to us. And these prayers of Brahma are very nice, because he reveals the entire spiritual world. Chintamani prakarasal masukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabi apipalayantam lakshmi sahasa satasham brahmasevyamanam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. So nice, these Govindam prayers. And actually, Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, says something very interesting in the 28th verse of the purport to the 28th verse of the Brahma Samhita. He says, and this, you can note it very carefully. He says, Śrīmad-Mahaprabhu has taught this hymn to his favorite disciples, inasmuch as it fully contains all the transcendental truths regarding the Vaishnava philosophy. Readers are requested to study and try to enter into the spirit of this hymn with great care and attention as a regular daily function. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta actually, in the Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada would say that he wanted this Brahma Samhita to be recited every day. That's why Prabhupada inserted it into our morning program. But then also we can take up the prerogative and ourselves chant the whole thing every day. My Guru Maharaj, when he was serving Radha Govinda for three years, he told me personally that he would chant the Brahma Samhita to them every single day before going out in Sankirtan. So I try to follow in his footsteps, and every morning I come and I chant the Brahma Samhita to Radha Govinda. Because this Vandanam is one of the aspects of devotional service, one of the limbs of devotional service, offering prayers to the Lord. And actually by such prayers is mentioned in the Gajendra Moksha, in the 8th canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Gajendra, the elephant, in his previous life was Indrayuna Maharaj. And actually he remembered prayers that he was reciting in his previous life. And Prabhupada specifically mentions the Brahma Samhita in that section. That we can chant hymns like this and remember hymns like this. And this will actually carry us on. Because, as Krishna mentions, what you remember at the time of death, that you will attain. So you've been chanting these very nice prayers your entire life. At the end of your life, whatever that may be, because actually we don't know when our life will end. Maharaj Parikshit was fortunate enough to know 7 days. We don't know if we have 7 seconds. But whenever that may be, as long as we're practicing constantly to chant these prayers to Krishna, to be absorbed in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, then any time we're ready for death. And we can be a bhayam, we can be completely fearless. Actually, only a devotee is fearless because he understands Krishna is protecting me. And at any moment I can go away, but Krishna will take care of me. And we'll know that because if we read the Bhagavad Gita, we'll know that. Krishna, Arjuna, you declare Bodhi, my devotee will never be vanquished. Well, that's it. That's it. Very simple. Simple for the simple. Complicated for the complicated. So, and then just finishing up here, Prabhupada's last purport, he really drives it on home, explaining about the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. He says the regular reading or hearing of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is also performance of bhakti yoga. And one can attain the highest perfection simply by association of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Both Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit attained perfection through the medium of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna in this age of Kali. Krishna swadhamapagate dharma jnana divi saha kala nasta jasamesa puranako dhunoditaha. So the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a spotless Purana. And it is as brilliant as the sun. And it has arisen in this age of Kali to dispel the darkness of ignorance. When Prabhupada was asked, Prabhupada, how do we distribute Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Prabhupada said, you quote this verse. You quote this verse to the people. Krishna swadhamapagate dharma jnana divi saha kalaunasa jasamesa puranako dhunoditaha. So Krishna has come in the Kali Yuga, the form of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Prabhupada so mercifully made this Bhagavatam available to us. How many of us can read the Sanskrit text? Anybody? No. Not many people. But Prabhupada made it available to us. And here we actually have such a nice opportunity because every day we can come down to Radha Govinda's temple, and as we're passing by, we can look into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada is there dictating the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And if we are to say that we are followers of Srila Prabhupada, and we even have a little bit of gratefulness for the sacrifice he gave for us, then there's no reason why any follower of Srila Prabhupada cannot at least 1 hour a day be absorbed in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. At least, there's 24 hours in a day. At least 1 hour of your day you can take and put yourself in front of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And by this way, actually properly honor Srila Prabhupada. Because if we hear about the life of Srila Prabhupada, what he was doing in his daily activities, he would wake up at 12:30, 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, and start dictating Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. He would dictate for 3 hours, sometimes longer. So he was putting out this Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam for us. So, of course, I know for myself, I'll never be able to compose anything of this caliber, but I've been given the ability at least to read. And we properly use the abilities that we've been given by Krishna. Practically everyone can read. It's not such a difficult thing to do. Put yourself in front of the Bhagavatam. And even if you can't read, have someone read to you. Why not? Keshav Bharati Maharaj is now undergoing the Herculean task to record all of Prabhupada's books in audio format. And His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was actually appreciating very greatly hearing Prabhupada's books out loud. Actually, this is very important. And I saw Prabhupada actually, I was reading the other day, Prabhupada mentioned that point of hearing the books out loud. So we can do this because this is Shravanam Kirtanam. And this is not only the beginning of devotional service, but is what sustains us in devotional service. So it's not that the progressive path of devotional service is Shravanam Kirtanam, then you go to Vishnu Smaranam and you give up the Shravanam Kirtanam and you just think of Vishnu all the time. No, you continue to hear and chant through all stages of your devotional service, from the beginning to the end. And then you continue to hear some more. Bhāgavatam rasam alayam. So this Bhāgavatam, Nigamakalpadiro Ghalitam Palam Sukha Mukha Amritam Dravya Samyutam Pibhata Bhāgavatam rasam alayam Muhu Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavakaha. So those who are Rasikas, those who are actually knowers of the mellows, and even is mentioned alayam, so even those that are not liberated, and those are on the path of liberation, and those who are already liberated. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. And relish this juice, this rasam of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is filled with the glories of Krishna, the holy name of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, the devotees of Krishna, the paraphernalia of Krishna, and Krishna's abode, and the relationship that Krishna has with his devotees. So we can do the greatest thing for ourselves and for others by propagating the reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and also distributing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And the BBT has again started its Bhadra Purnima campaign. It's not too early. The CC campaign just ended and now the Bhagavatam campaign has started already. I think it's September 21st? 20th, okay, September 20th this year, Bhadra Purnima. So whoever's listening, if you don't have a Bhagavatam, get on the list, get one, bring one home. Make your life and others fortunate. And then I'll just finish with this last point from this very nice book. This is my request, and it's different compilations of Srila Prabhupada regarding book distribution. And then Prabhupada says here, there is no comparison. There is no literature throughout the universe like Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. There is no comparison. There is no competition. Every word is for the good of human society. Every word, each and every word. Therefore, we stress so much in this book distribution. Some or other, if the book goes in one's hand, he will be benefited. At least he will see, oh, I have taken so much price, let me see what is there. If he reads one shloka, his life will be successful. If he reads one shloka, one word, this is such a nice thing. Therefore, we are stressing so much. Please distribute book, distribute book, distribute book. A greater mridanga. We are chanting, playing our mridanga. It is heard within this room or a little more. But this mridanga will go home to home, country to country, community to community. This mridanga. And as is mentioned in the 8th canto, in regards to Lord Shiva, that great souls almost always undertake austerities for the benefit of others. And this is the greatest way, the greatest method by which to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is our tapasya. We carry these books, we carry that mridanga, we go out into the subway where no one gives a damn about who we are. But we give them Krishna. We give them Krishna. Because at least we have faith in Srila Prabhupada and we have faith in Krishna that this is for the benefit of the entire world. Shrinvata Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Yadhantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Saditatam. And then Krishna within the heart will purify us, and he also in the hearts of those living entities passing by the Harina will also get purified. Whether they consciously or unconsciously hear the holy names of the Lord, which is fear by fear personified. Okay, so that's the class. Anybody have any questions, comments, corrections? You want to get the mic? Mata Bhargaranga.
So, we're distributing these books and we're doing Harinam, but it seems like there's not many devotees doing that. So what hope is there that devotees will get it and then eventually do, Prabhupada says only 50% of my mission is complete, like actual, make Krishna conscious to your life, not that, oh, you live in the city, you work for this, you do this and that, and then on the side you maybe chant 16 rounds, and, hopefully you have Krishna Prasad for most of your meals, and sometimes you might go to the restaurant. But, isn't what Prabhupada wanted whole villages, whole cities, whole, societies of people actually being able to fully be Krishna conscious their whole day. I was wondering what's your thoughts on that? Because sometimes it's like we're doing this, but
What is the goal?
it's like the goal seems so far away, and it seems like we're doing such little impact, and so it's sometimes it can be kind of like disheartening.
Well, first of all, it's talking about it. Second of all, let's put the horse before the carriage. So therefore, we need, again, massive Harinam Sankirtan and book distribution. And automatically, Prabhupada said, automatically the Krishna conscious movement will spread. So what happens is when this proper knowledge is propagated in human society, and then of course when people are reading Prabhupada's books and they're being educated in Prabhupada's books, they'll see simple living, high thinking. And then there'll be individuals that will be inspired to do and live in this way. So yeah, we have to do the groundwork. Indra Prabhu, right, he mentions in that in his book, it's kind of like, this is like the reins. And actually in the seventh purpose of the ISKCON, Prabhupada mentions in the seventh purpose, to accomplish the four mentioned purposes, to print and publish and distribute periodicals and books. So therefore there has to be mass education, first and foremost. And actually in this regard, very interesting, Bhakti Raghava Maharaj. You all know who Bhakti Raghava Maharaj is? Oh, he's such an amazing sadhu. He actually has one leg because his leg was blown up when some Gundas attacked Mayapur. They threw a bomb and it blew up Maharaj's leg. But he's continued to preach strongly. He goes village to village in India preaching. And he started this village to village library. So now he's going to in India. And actually this recent Bhadra campaign, these Bhagavatams that were being sponsored for India were going to Bhakti Raghava Maharaj. And he was placing them in villages in India, different villages. So Bhakti Raghava Maharaj, one time he was going to India, but his visa had expired. So he had to go somewhere else for some time. So he decided to go to Thailand. You listening, Dr. This is for you.
I'm listening.
Okay. So he decided to go to Thailand. And there was another devotee preaching there, and they decided, okay, well, anyway, I'm here, I have to wait for my visa. What am I going to do? He's going to preach. So Maharaj decided he was preaching. So they went to the universities, and they were doing university programs. And it was something like a whole class of like 500 students. They cultivated, and they got him into reading Prabhupada's books, and they got him like fired up about Krishna consciousness. And then somehow or other, because Maharaj is also, he's a very big proponent of self-sustained communities, village, varnashram. And by Maharaj's preaching, his convincing them through, Prabhupada's books, they all decided that when they graduated, they didn't want to go into the workforce. And they started a community. So that community is there, but we don't hear much about it. But it's there, 500 devotees. I can get more information from Sri Krishna Purushottam Prabhu, who's a disciple of Bhakti Raghava Maharaj. But he said, yeah, they have a whole community now. All devotees. They're all living off the land. I mean, then you have examples like in Hungary, Sri Ram Maharaj, there's 300 families there. New Rajadam, living with no electricity, living simply. And so there's examples. But yeah, this mass education, it's essential, because people will have to understand why they're doing it and why that is a better way of life. Because otherwise they'll say, why would I give up the city? They're so nice. Look, I have hot water all the time. I have a faucet. I have so much gadgets, so much electricity. I don't want to give up that. But when they see examples, and actually what Prabhupada wanted was that they'll be relatively close to the cities, these farm communities, and then you can take people there, like buses, like take them on a little tour, like a little retreat, and show them, okay, look how our devotees are living. And then that would be the greatest preaching. So first of all, let's put the horse before the carriage, and let's get the Harinam Sankirtan going, and the book distribution happening, and college preaching going. Because and then ultimately we have to educate, especially those who are willing to do something. We see so many of the young people originally when the Krishna conscious movement began. They were very enthusiastic about doing things. So therefore, we should seek out these enthusiastic individuals and properly direct their energy towards doing something wonderful for Krishna. Because it's Kali Yuga after all. Rayana payusab sabdha kalo vasmin yuge janaha manda sumanda matayo manda bhagi upadutaha. So people are lazy, they're misguided, they're unlucky, they're always disturbed. So therefore, let's give them the proper guidance. Let's look for those that are not lazy. Let's look for those who are willing to work. Do some activity, not just do nothing all day. And you become the most fortunate when you come to this Krishna consciousness movement. Because you're coming in contact with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And disturbance goes away. Why? Because once you engage in Krishna consciousness, the mind becomes... these are just secondary things, of course. Becoming peaceful in these things. But it comes automatically when we engage in Krishna consciousness. So many troubles go away. Anyway, that's my answer to that. Any other questions?
One last thing is, I think I learned during the classes, when somebody gives class, it's good to say at least something, maybe 15 minutes to give reflection on it, because it's a way to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And this will be what I do. And I just was thinking about the point you said about coming to Mangalarti, or doing any kind of devotional service, so it's important. You just have to show up there. And I was just thinking that it's very important to, what is the goal of it, right? We can do so many things, and we do. But the goal of it is, at least as for me, and from what I believe, that is to develop this natural feeling, to come. Not because somebody told you to come to Mangalarti, or just because, it needs to be done because it's programmed like that. But when you have natural feeling, to see the Lord. So it can be a nice test in the spiritual life. That's how I feel. And if for some reason we do it for so many years and we don't have this feeling, then there's something must be wrong. Not wrong, but something can be adjusted in our devotional life. So this is my impression.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But therefore we have Vaidhi Bhakti and Raghunaga Bhakti, which is the two tracks that we're running on, Panchrattra Kividi and Bhagavat Marg. So we have both aspects, meaning we have the regulation, but yes, the feeling also must develop. But in the beginning, we might not have feeling. We have more attraction because we're coming out of the modes of Tamagun and Rajagun. What do we have attraction to? We have feeling for sleeping in our bed. We have feeling for, doing so many abominable things. So therefore, yeah, in the beginning there's a little force. There should be regulation. That's why Prabhupada gave the program. Otherwise, why would he give it? He gave us, this regulation, like that.
My point is that if with some time, we don't develop it still, even though we understand so much of philosophy. So, and we know that the process is not wrong. So something must be wrong with the heart. Something must be wrong with the process, the way I do it, like that. So it's kind of, when we have feeling, right, for a particular person, you just want to see this person. The same happens to Krishna, right? You just want to see Krishna every single morning. And I just think it's very important to develop this thing. It kind of relates to what the Bar said, that it's not only, a particular time we do, right? But just His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu said that we have to make basically our sadhana, right? Interrupt our sadhana all our life, not the other way around. So.
Right. So therefore, strong sadhana. That's what Guru Maharaj states, that before anything is strong sadhana. So therefore, yeah, the regulation is there. In order we do it, but then also we should see that the feeling should be developing. But not at the expense of, forgetting the program. That's my point, is that we should never think that these things or these rituals or the programs that have been given, that they're a burden, but maybe we should see that, okay, maybe there's some adjustment I need to make in my consciousness to see it in that way. And then we pray to Krishna. Ultimately, Krishna, there's something wrong, something I'm not seeing, please help me. And then ultimately, just putting ourselves before Krishna. And just, actually, it's a very nice thing His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying. My Guru Maharaj was, there were some devotees who were on book distribution in Harinam. And then they were chanting, and then they distributed books to one person. And then this person, they taught him the Maha Mantra. And then the guy was just like, okay, what does that mean? And then they said the devotee looked at him and said, it means I need help. So we're conditioned souls. We're so many lifetimes attracted to so many wrong things. So now in this life, we've been given the right thing. We've been given this process of Krishna consciousness. And still we need help along the way, all along the way, until we reach. So Dylan, just carry 2 at a time then if you keep dropping. And we need help. We need help. So we say, Krishna, I need help. Help me, Krishna. Help me, Krishna. So help me, God. Okay. Anything else? We're past time now. That's it? Okay. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Oh, the Premanandi.